One way to measure your position on Earth is using lines of latitude and longitude. Lines of latitude are also called parallels, the most famous of which is the equator that is around the center of the Earth. And then you have your northwest lines that also circle the globe, and this creates a grid of squares. But those north-south lines are called meridians, and the prime meridian is in Greenwich, England, and that is also where the international date line is located. Another famous parallel is the 38th parallel. That is the 38th parallel north of the equator, and it was famously used to separate North and South Korea after the end of the Korean War. Unlike latitude and longitude, the military grid reference system uses 60 grid zones, which covers the entire Earth, and we are working out of grid zone 17S, which is the first part of a set of coordinates, as you will see later on. This is a visual reference of grid zone 17S. It's not drawn to scale, but it gives you an idea of the amount of area that one grid zone of the military grid reference system would cover. You can find your 100,000 meter square ID at the bottom center of your map, and we are working out of Lima Uniform, or LU, and that's inside grid zone designation 17S. Inside 17S are multiple 100,000 meter square IDs. To obtain a complete set of grid coordinates, you combine your grid zone designation of 17S plus your 100,000 meter square ID of Lima Uniform, and then either 4, 6, or 8-digit grid coordinates. For example, Pinnacle Mountain, 17S, LU 41167816. The number of digits in your grid coordinates corresponds to the accuracy of your coordinates. For example, 4 digits is within 1,000 meters, 6 digits is within 100 meters, 8 digits is within 10 meters, and 10 digits puts you within 1 meter of your actual position on the ground. Figure 412 shows an example of a set of 4-digit grid coordinates. In this case, 2948, meaning your position is somewhere inside that green square, and therefore that puts you within 1,000 meters of your position on the ground. This figure shows what is commonly called a protractor in the military, and we'll be coming back to this image several times in this video series. But for right now, we want to go ahead and focus on the scales. There's 3 different scales. One in the top left that says 1 to 50,000 meters, one in the bottom left, 1 to 100,000 meters, and then one on the bottom right that says 1 to 25,000 or 1 to 250,000 meters. And these are scales that correspond to the different maps that are available. Our map is 1 to 24,000, and we will go ahead and use the one that says 1 to 25,000 in the bottom right hand corner because that is the closest one that we have to our actual scale map. During military operations, it's especially important to have your grid coordinates as accurate as the situation dictates. We said earlier there's 4, 6, and 8-digit grid coordinates. A 4-digit grid coordinate puts you inside of a grid square. You don't need much accuracy there. That's to 1,000 meters. In other situations, you might need a 6-digit grid coordinate, which would be okay for reporting a location because that puts you within 100 meters of your actual position. But if you want to call in a target, or if you want to put yourself within 10 meters on the ground, you need to go ahead and use that protractor we showed you earlier because estimation is not a good method to use when you're trying to get an 8-digit grid coordinate. Here's our task. Determine the grid coordinates of a point on a military map. And remember the rule in LandNav. When determining coordinates, read right, then up. Read right, then up. We're going to start at the bottom of our map here, bottom left corner. Okay, and we're going to look for Pinnacle Mountain. Now we know Pinnacle Mountain is up here. Right there. But we're going to read right first because that's the rule. Read right, then up. So we start down here, and we read to the right, and we hit grid line 4-1. Okay, that's the correct number. But if you look to the right a little further, 4-2 would be there if that text wasn't in the way. Then you see 4-3, so on and so forth. But we start with the first part, read right. 4-1 is the correct number. We know that by following that grid line up, 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 until we run into Pinnacle Mountain. And it runs right past the intersection, which is the one we're looking for, the bottom left corner of that specific grid square where Pinnacle Mountain is. Okay? Now, same principle applies. We've read right. We know the first two digits are 4, 1. Start back at the bottom left corner, and then we read up. Remember, it's read right, then up. So we start at the bottom left. The first one I see is 7, 5. There's 7, 6, 7, 7, 7, 8. And if you look, that's where those two lines intersect, at the bottom left corner of the grid square that Pinnacle Mountain is in. So our 4-digit grid coordinates for Pinnacle Mountain are 4, 1, 7, 8. Okay, we've got our 4-digit grid coordinate of 4, 1, 7, 8. Now we're going to go ahead and use that same grid square, Pinnacle Mountain. We're going to use the hilltop, or actually the mountaintop there, as our point of reference. And we're going to use this protractor to go ahead and narrow it down to a 6 and an 8-digit grid coordinate. Now, it's clear so you can see what's underneath. Sometimes the black numbers and lines get in the way, but for the most part it's transparent. And then you want to make sure you've got it oriented right. You need to be able to read these words here. If you're reading a foreign language, you've probably got it backwards. Just flip it around, okay? And we're going to go ahead and use this scale here, the 1 to 25,000 scale, because that most appropriately lines up with our map, which is 1 to 24,000. Okay? Now we're going to take this scale and put this 90-degree angle right here onto the bottom left corner of the grid square that we want, which is Pinnacle Mountain, and there it is. Okay? We line up the black lines on top of these tan lines, these grid lines, and then we're going to slide this protractor to the right until this line here cuts directly through the center of where you want to be, which is Pinnacle Mountain. So we're going to slide it to the right, keeping it all lined, and there, bang, we're right through the center of the mountain. Alright, we make small adjustments with the protractor just to make sure it's lined up. I'm going to take a second to go ahead and do that, and then I'll leave my protractor alone. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and get the third and fourth digits of the grid coordinate. Okay, we know the first two are 4, 1. What are the next two? Well, if you want to go ahead and get the third digit and stop, that would be your 6-digit grid coordinates. Okay, we're going to go ahead and do that just for demonstration purposes. But we're going to go ahead and see which number is it closest to on the bottom of the scale. Okay, we've passed the number 1, looking at the intersection there of the Pinnacle Mountain grid square, and we have passed the 1, but we haven't quite hit the 2 yet. Okay, so you could go either way. You could either say it's 4, 1, 2 or 4, 1, 1. It's right in the middle of between 1 and 2, so take your pick. Most people round up, but you can round down. You see how it's not quite as precise? That's why we want to go ahead and go with the 8-digit grid coordinates. Okay, to get the 8-digit grid coordinates, we're going to look at these little graduation lines in between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. And there's 5 of them in total. It breaks it up into 5 sections, rather. Okay, so if I'm looking real detailed here, I see that the brown line, the grid line, actually runs through the third graduation. In other words, to get our 8-digit grid coordinates, it's going to be 4, 1, 1, 6. I say 6, it's the third graduation line, but the grid square is going to be divided up 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. That's what the little small tick marks are. 2, 4, 6, 8. And then you get the next number, whatever it is. In this case, the next number would be 2. So we got 1, 2, 4, 6. And that's your tick mark, the very small tick mark right there. So it's grid square 4, 1, 1, 2, 4, 6. All together now, grid square 4, 1, 1, 6. Okay, that's your first 4 digits. First 4 digits. Okay, now we want to get the second 4 digits, because 4 plus 4 is 8, right? I hope you're keeping up with all this math. Alright, now we're going to go up. We read right, then we read up. So we got pretty much the same reading, because I see here that we passed the 1 and we don't quite make it to the 2. In fact, it's about halfway, just like down here. So we have 7, 8. See it? 7, 8. 1, 6, because it's the third tick mark. 2, 4, 6. So we've got all together now. Let's see if we can bring this in to complete focus, okay? We've got grid square 4, 1. 1, 2, 4, 6. 4, 1, 1, 6. 7, 8. 1, 6. So we're going to throw it up there on the screen. All together now. Grid square. Of this map here. 1 to 24,000 scale. We have grid square 17S Lima uniform 4, 1 1, 6 7, 8 1, 6. Congratulations, that's an 8-digit grid coordinate. This concludes part 2, which took us through chapter 4 of FM 3-25.26. Starting in chapter 5, we'll cover such subjects as straight line distance, curved line distance, getting an azimuth using your protractor or a compass, and so on and so forth. So this is Sergeant First Class Retired Monroe, over and out.